Hello, everybody. Welcome. Appreciate you coming in. Thank you. Seeing you as you join. Let us know where you're coming in from. Smash that like button. Tell us the city, the state. Also, cool to see familiar faces who are in the live from earlier today. What is up? Welcome. Thank you so much. And you're smashing the like button already as you're coming in. There's infinite likes out here on Substack. It boosts us in the algorithm. Thank you. And if you have not already, hit subscribe to Ahmed Baba News and to my brother Adam Ali here, who is a good friend and one of the sharpest, if not the sharpest foreign policy mind I know. So you know that we had to come back on here. You saw him a couple weeks ago. We were talking about literally within the 72 hours after the Iran war started. Adam was here helping us break that down. And a lot of what he said has proven true since we are now in week 3. Before we get into some of the details here, got to tell you guys, buckle up. This is going to be a great episode. You're going to learn a lot. We're going to really break this down for you, not just talking points, not just partisan stuff. You're going to understand how Trump miscalculated, exactly what he missed, and you're going to learn some new things about the history of Iran you might not have known either. So really good episode for you today. Adam, how are you doing?
Doing as well as I can be considering the circumstances. It is a tough thing to watch a world order that our ancestors worked so hard for. Not even our ancestors, our grandparents, people around the
Yeah.
world. It doesn't fall into neat lines, but we learned a lot from the 20th century, and we're throwing those lessons out at a rapid clip. And to be honest, it keeps me up at night.
No, I mean, it's the same. I mean, it's really truly insane. I mean, now we have Trump saying, "Please, please, allies, help me in the Hormuz," and we can get into that in a little bit. But it's like, that's one of the failures, right? That miscalculation on the coalition. So we're gonna get to that in a bit because what I really want us to do here is really go piece by piece. So just broadly, though, we've seen reporting from CNN, the New York Times, even the Wall Street Journal on exactly how poorly planned this war was, how much Donald Trump miscalculated, whether it's the shifting justifications, the shifting objectives, whether it's whether or not they can anticipate different retaliatory measures. Broadly, like, what do you think are some of the key miscalculations you've seen the Trump administration that they made heading into the war?
Well, the number one, you mentioned the Wall Street Journal, and I got to give them props. They've been doing amazing reporting on this war, and I think that that's because their access and their role as a conservative voice in this media landscape, um, and their resources does give them that leg up against some of these other legacy media companies that have been, frankly, purchased by folks that have a very direct agenda. And for all of Rupert Murdoch's extreme faults, the guy loves journalism. And the one thing that the journal posted was that Trump kept this to a very small circle. He kept
Yes.
this to an extremely small circle that included Vance, Rubio, and Hegseth. That narrowed the advice from the
Yes.
entirety of the U.S. government. And typically, when these types of things are put into motion, when the policy of the United States is being formulated, war in particular takes weeks or months of deliberation. And that's deliberation that's happening far below the principal level. You have
Exactly.
interagency coordination that's going on, then that reaches the National Security Council and the principals. That, from all we can tell, was skipped. This was a
Yes.
closed war room, essentially. And so to be caught by surprise, I just don't buy it, because you
Yeah.
also have another Wall Street Journal story that is clearly sourced from elements within the Pentagon that shows that General Kane said, "Hey, expect the strait to be closed.
Yep.
Expect." And this is something that really set me off a little bit yesterday when Trump said, "Oh, we had no idea that Iran would launch attacks across the region." And that flies in the face of history. It flies in the face
Everybody.
of everybody, and it flies in the face of his experiences in his own first term, when after we struck Soleimani, if we recall, the Al Assad Air Base in Iraq was struck, that resulted in hundreds of traumatic brain injuries.
Mhm.
And so this feeling that Iran was degraded, and they are. I don't think that we do ourselves any favor
Of
to
course.
to sugarcoat the fact that Iran's military capacity has been severely degraded. Their leadership capacity has been severely degraded. The regime still stands, however, and they're taking pride in the fact that their regime still stands.
Yeah.
So one initial goal that has already failed.
100%. Yeah. And I'm glad you brought up that Wall Street Journal story about the small circle, right? Because what we're seeing is that yes, they kept it, there was no interagency process, there was no weeks long or months long situation where you're building up different stakeholders who are coming in and telling you all the contrary possibilities here. And like you said, General Kane reportedly warned Trump directly, and Trump said, "Oh no, they won't. If they close the strait." I don't want to do the accent. I used to be way better at the impression. You remember,
Oh,
but
I do.
he said if you close the strait, oh, they'll give up. They'll give up, and we'll be able to handle it, right? And it's just insane because yesterday with Peter Ducey asked like, "Hey, is it true, that no one really could have predicted that the retaliatory strikes in Saudi Arabia and Kuwait and Trump was like, oh, nobody. And it's like everyone with half a brain cell or with even
Yeah.
passing knowledge of the region could have predicted this. So it's like it's insane. And the fact that they didn't have a plan for the day after, it comes to that small circle that he had, that team of sycophants that told him what he wanted to hear. And what systems do you think broke down? Do you think that it really was just as simple as they went ahead and ignored contrary advice, or they limited the circle because they knew that the outside voices that could have potentially come in would have told them this is a dumb idea?
I really think hubris won the day, and
Yeah,
it stems from the fact that he conducted a boat campaign in the lead up to Venezuela with no consequence, no pushback whatsoever. Um, and then the Maduro operation, frankly, it went off without a hitch. That's not to say that the geopolitical
of
ramifications
course. Yeah,
are going to stem the third and fourth, the nth order effects are going to ripple across the region. We're already seeing Cuba's in an energy crisis right now. So these are things that are just not considered. These are not considered. And everything that we know about Trump is that, he was skeptical of the use of military force in his first term. He really, really wanted to unshackle the Pentagon in his idea, and I think that stems from the fact that he truly believed that our general flag officers at the time were working against him, that his defense secretary was working against him, and this time he has staffed the Pentagon,
yep,
except there has been a massive, massive turnover rate in the general and flag officer ranks. And what we're seeing is, I think, a closure of information systems. Uh,
yes,
and so even if the warnings were ending up on his desk, I think that he was riding a high because he has his people in place. He's taking some excursions, which is such an unbelievably offensive term to people that are putting their lives on the line in the region. And frankly, to go back a little bit to some of the earlier missteps, the Gulf countries, our Gulf allies, are
oh
furious.
yeah,
They are furious. They have spent decades at this point, really, trying to build the region as a tourist friendly, safe haven
yep,
away from the chaos of the Middle East. And now you're having Dubai under fire almost daily. You have Oman, who is helping to facilitate these negotiations, under attack. You have
yeah,
Jordan coming under attack. I mean, we're talking about countries that have been steadfast allies to the United States. I mean, we can go. Today is not the conversation
yeah,
for the nuance about those allyships, but they are allyships that are now at risk because they were
yep,
not getting the input prior to.
exactly. And I want to get to the coalition bit in a second, but I also want to touch on something that you talk about here as a response to Jay. Jay, talked about how she want to understand, basically they want to understand like why within the military didn't this stop? And you answered that question about the breakdowns in the Department of Defense and the people who've been purged and those the loyalists and the General Kane and the other individuals he's now surrounded himself. There's no Mark Milley's, there's no Mark Esper there that could tell him this is a bad idea. He's surrounded by absolute loyalists, right? So it really is far reaching on the coalition front too. But yeah, I mean, yes, I see you guys in the comments. Also, just got to tell you guys, thank you for being here again. A lot more people have joined since we started. We are talking about how Trump got Iran so wrong, all the miscalculations. We're taking it bit by bit. You're going to learn a lot during this live. We're really going to break it down, structure it. Got Adam Ali, one of the brightest foreign policy minds I know. Hit the like button. I see y'all smashing it nonstop anyway. Keep doing it. You get unlimited likes. And if you have not, hit subscribe to Ahmed Baba News. We were in the top 100 U.S. politics rising Substacks last week. Help us get back up in there. Hit the paid subscriber button if you have not, and also subscribe to Adam Ali, who is new here on Substack. And yes, so like when we're talking about these breakdowns here, like we got that small circle that is effectively feeding Trump information that he wants to hear. We've got this now situation where they went in here with absolutely zero plan. And also another point before we get to the coalition stuff on why the strike too and why the lack of planning. I really think Trump's desperation level has finally met the level of Netanyahu's, because Netanyahu tried to do this in April. Trump said no then. The time he was feeling comfortable domestically. Then in June, Netanyahu went ahead and they did a 12-day war, started off without U.S. assistance. Fox News really lobbied for him to do it. So, as much as Murdoch might, the Wall Street Journal let the Wall Street Journal go to town on the reporting, he has Fox News on the other end egging it on, which is a really weird dichotomy going on there. But basically, Fox News egged him on to do it. So he joined the war. He liked how that played. Then, like you said, you're right, Venezuela. He got way high off Venezuela. And then, of course, yes, like Mary Rose is saying, Epstein files, other domestic distractions. Trump felt very weak here at home. ICE, Renee Good, Alex Preddy, he was slipping. So in foreign policy, where he has the most leeway and power, unilateral power mostly there, because Congress is refusing to hold up its legislative duty to check him. That's why he's doing this. And then Netanyahu comes back now while Trump's feeling desperate in an election year for Netanyahu, which I don't think is talked about enough. And now an election year for Trump. We are here, and that we have this move. So, do you have any thoughts on that before I move on to this international coalition
Yeah,
situation?
I want to tread very carefully in playing into tropes that Israel dictates our foreign policy.
Of course, of course.
I want to be very careful about that. But Marco Rubio did not do any favors when he went to the press and said, "We knew there was going to be an Israeli strike.
Yep.
We knew that the consequences of that strike would affect American service members in the region."
Mhm.
And so it didn't become a question of if we were going to participate in this war, it was when. And so I think it's objectively true by the statements of the administration itself that Israel was going to go and we were going to follow.
Yep.
Now,
Exactly.
and so that really kind of boxed Trump in, because I think that does show that the domestic pressures at home, and you're absolutely correct, a second term president, even if it's non-consecutive terms, he has the most constitutional power in the realm of foreign policy. And if you and I have been watching Donald Trump for a very, very long time. And I cannot stand that word distraction, because these are very serious things, and a lot of his so-called distractions are incredibly harmful and often
Yeah.
deadly. And this one, I mean, it is. I find a supreme irony here, on the fact that he really railed against the neoconservative ideology since he's been a political actor,
Yes.
since he arrived on the stage and came down the escalator. What he may not be realizing is that he is being used to push forward this very old neoconservative agenda. So
Exactly.
he has been morphed into what he has claimed to hate out of desperation. And we have to remember, Marco Rubio cut his teeth in Bush world, you know?
Exactly. No, exactly. Yes. And and that's a really good case that can be made against this administration heading into 2028. It's like a repeat of the environment politically that led to an Obama rising. When you have something like this, not just a combination of an economy collapsing,
Yep.
or with some real risks here, a potential bubble happening, and then you have also foreign wars that no one asked for, destabilizing regions and causing surges in terrorism. All the same recipes that led to Barack Hussein rising. So, who knows who could be next in 2028. So I'm glad you brought up just the previous neocons, because we're going to do some. There's also a comparison you made with Iraq, and you have another interesting one on Afghanistan. But I want to talk also about just like the total lack of international coalition here. Europe reportedly got minutes notice before the strikes, which is insane, for our NATO allies, right? And as bad and terrible as Iraq was, ended up being, it just goes to show you that ahead of Iraq, the Bush admin did a lot more coalition building, significantly more. They made a case to the UN, and they made a case to the American people, although flawed and although dishonest. They made one and got support. And that still ended catastrophically. So could you imagine how bad this would end? So basically, what are your thoughts on just on the coalition building missteps on the international front?
I mean, it's catastrophic. It's unprecedented, frankly. And if we think back, we're gonna have to shift back a little bit here to literally the week after 9/11, the weeks after 9/11, and there was a pretty famous meeting that occurred at Camp David where
Mhm.
President Bush pulled his war cabinet together. We were gonna go and strike Afghanistan, and that was obvious, that they were harboring the terrorists that launched the attacks from Afghan soil. We had to go in. But what has always struck me about that now famous Camp David meeting is that by the end of it, the attention turned to Iraq. So we're talking ground zero still on fire, and Iraq is being discussed at Camp David by the war cabinet. And so, sort of like it's not an if, but when with Iran in Bush 2, with George W. Bush, it was a not if, but when with Iraq. And they spent the period between the attack on 9/11 to the launch of the invasion, building political consensus, gathering a coalition of allies, and quite famously, by I think it was March 30th, 15 days after the start of the war, there was 50 countries that had signed on to that coalition. That work was done in advance. And I think we mentioned last time, you even had Russia and Iran discussing and sending offers to help with the reconstruction of Iraq.
Also,
So
just one quick note on the Iran front was I read that Soleimani actually went to touch ground in Afghanistan, but before the U.S. went there. So like Iran was literally in collaboration with us at the time. So just go ahead.
yes, it's true. And they had a lot of intel about the activities of the Northern Alliance, because this is their border.
Yeah.
This is their border. And so they know what's going on in the region. Kind of like this small tangent, but a little bit like the Pakistan is now dealing with a huge problem with the Taliban. I
Yeah.
mean, you kind of created this Frankenstein across the border, and now it's hitting you back.
Exactly. Yeah.
And this is the type of second, third, fourth, 15th order effects that are not happening in that small group.
Yes.
Where are the knockoff effects? And something, there's been a lot of good discussion about rising prices of oil. It's gonna hurt. It's gonna hurt Americans if we have to pay $6 a gallon in gas. It is
Exactly.
going to absolutely destabilize countries that have weak economies and weak political systems. So this is not like the
Yeah.
actor in this conflict. It's not the United States, Israel, and Iran. This is a complete, at this point, full blown regional conflict with consequences that are going to spread across the globe.
1,000%, and we're gonna get to the total lack of preparation for those other consequences in a little bit, because at the very end of this, I want to get to the end game and the potential predictions of where this can go next. So if you guys are watching, stay tuned. If you're learning a lot, hit the like button, Be in the comments, ask questions too. We're going to get some of your questions as well, because we really wanted to create a episode for you here where we really let you help you understand the internal dynamics, figure out what's really going on. We're going to get some Iranian history here. We're going to get into a lot of stuff. So definitely stay tuned. We're taking it bit by bit. So yes, on this lack of coalition building here now, you got the international coalition, Trump begging them to now come in to the Strait of Hormuz after the fact to help, take out these people who are planting mines, these other vessels, and no one's biting, right? Because he's been sitting here insulting our allies. And then on top of that, the lack of the international coalition building, if you look at the false justifications and shifting objectives of the Trump admin, let's say you were to even take one of the false objectives, which was initially potentially regime change. If it was serious about regime change, they've worked with zero proxy groups on the ground. The Kurds are skeptical, from what I've seen reportedly, and also no opposition force that they were sitting there building credibility with for months or years. Nothing there, because you've already screwed the Iranian people over before with not just the tearing up of the JCPOA, but well before that, which we'll get to in a second. But what do you think about the total lack of any attempt at potentially propping up an opposition there, when one of their initial stated goals that they quickly moved away from was regime change?
Right. Well, I mean, I think if we know something about Donald, he thinks that every man has his price. Every man, every woman, every person has their price. He doesn't understand ideology. He doesn't understand ideologues. He doesn't
Yes.
understand people that have sincerely held beliefs. I think Donald's only sincerely held belief is tariffs, and that's something he doesn't even understand.
Yeah.
Tariffs and bigotry.
Pretty
Um,
much. Yeah.
but when it comes to this, I truly think he thought he would find a Delcy. I thought going back to Venezuela, he's a guy that he doesn't seem to think that other people have agency.
Yes. Yes.
Domestically, foreign, he really truly believes that other people just simply react to what he puts into the world, and they will conform and bend to his will. And you and I both for years have been extremely critical of the Iranian regime. We're no fan of the Iranian regime, but if you're going to undertake this, and we're in it now, we're in it. There's no tacoing on this situation here.
Yeah.
So the conditions are already set. The fallout is yet to be seen, but the conditions are set. And it really, to me, it comes down to hubris. Donald believes to his core that
Yep.
he has some sort of immutable talent to win people over and find a deal and offer a price. And the Iranians, if we are to believe some of the versions of the accounts that we heard out of Geneva, truly believed that there was a price that would preserve their regime and would avoid strikes. There was never a price for this. He had made up his mind.
Yep.
He knew Israel was going. He figured someone would raise their hand and say, I want to be, the viceroy of Iran at this point.
Exactly. Yes. No, that's spot on, because you got ahead of me. I was going to ask the next question about like what Trump misunderstands about Iran, but yes, he doesn't. This is what happens when you have a leader with zero empathy. He cannot put himself in the shoes of anyone else, and he projects his worldview onto everyone else. He thinks everyone else has some transactional price that they would give. He doesn't understand the ideological underpinnings of the regime. He doesn't understand the history. He's delusional, frankly, and he really thought, especially when you look at the phone calls right after the strikes that weekend, when he was workshopping justifications to the media, he was talking about how he hoped it would be a Venezuela-like situation, but that's impossible in a regime like Iran. He thought he could decapitate a few layers at the top, and then the next person would just be like, "Yes, sir, Donald, please give us the deal. We love you." And it's like, no, you misunderstand this regime. Like, do you think this guy has any clue of the history? Do you think he understands that Iran still is mad at the U.S. and the U.K. for basically engineering a coup to remove the democratically elected leader in 1953? Like, they're still pissed about that, let alone everything that's happened since. You think Trump understands that? You think he knows any of the context of what has happened there? Or even since the revolution in 79, like none of that is coming to his brain. And if you are a person who cannot project yourself into the shoes of other people because you project your amoral worldview on everyone, you cannot understand that the Iranian regime is ideological, and a lot of the time they don't act rationally. They have
Right.
made plenty of decisions that have undercut their own regime's viability. Stupid, dumb decisions.
I
Because of their ideology. And so if you understand who they are, their religious extremism, if you understand what actually motivates them, then you could have come to a real deal, but they didn't. They did not. If you read everything about it, Witkoff and Kushner, these were not serious negotiations. They clearly didn't even understand the technology. Witkoff made making some comments about the uranium equipment that was just insane. And it's like they did not care to understand or make a deal. They, like you said, I think you're right. I think they knew they were going to strike. They wanted to make it seem like they were giving some kind of effort at diplomacy, but no, Trump had made up his mind. But I just am shocked still, as sycophantic as the rest of the regime was, Rubio especially, just
Oh yeah.
disappointed and disgusted in him. It's like no one in the administration. Vance just put his tail between his legs and leaks to Politico that he was skeptical. But in reality, no one stood up and said, Donald, this is the worst idea you can do. You don't understand the regime. Let Netanyahu go do this himself. Let him deal with the consequences.
Let him deal with the consequences. And you have a Secretary of Defense who's in the command authority who believes you can intimidate an enemy by doing pull-ups and push-ups.
Right?
And,
Yeah.
you know, and
God.
that exposes a fundamental misunderstanding about the what we're committing our service members to. Tragically, that KC-135 tanker
Yeah.
loss we have, that by all accounts really does seem to be an accident. It's an accident, but when you send people into the theater of war, you're putting their lives at risk for goals that are not clear to not only the American people, our allies in the region and around the world. They're not clear to the people within Iran who we would possibly be negotiating with. And you're setting up we have stumbled into a sense of arrogance that, to go back to Bush for just a moment and how the neocon ideology seems to have infected this administration, which, is again a supreme irony here. There's a famous quote that was captured by Ron Suskind back in the day where, aides were mocking aides within the Bush administration, saying that, oh, you're part of the reality-based community. We're an empire now. We create our own reality. And they said that's not the way it works anymore, when the US is an empire. And that was proven wrong rapidly. And this failure to talk to folks on the ground, to build a coalition, or to even give our Gulf allies some heads up so we're not moving fads out of South Korea and minesweepers out of Malaysia, um, to be prepared for a war that was clearly going to happen. I don't think there was an off-ramp. This was going to happen. He was committed to it, and he had a command authority within the Pentagon that was ready to go.
Yeah, and the fact that they knew this was coming and didn't prep anyone is inexcusable. And now these Gulf nations are getting attacked. Like you said, they've been trying to, Saudi Arabia spearheading it, but their whole project has been to try to turn to capitalism, make their region something that's appetizing, with Dubai, everything. And they're sitting there trying to make it seem like it's a peaceful place to come. And then Trump goes and interferes with it. They thought they had an ally in him, with all their bribes, right?
Yeah.
But then you look at this, and then it's so foolish. They did not give any warning to the European allies. And then now Donald, it's like, dude, you can't spend your whole first year of your term attacking our NATO allies, calling them everything under the sun, trying to say you're going to go take Greenland. And then you come back to them and say, please help us, please come sacrifice your ships for us in the Strait of Hormuz after the fact without building any ramp up to this. It's, again, I think people like, I'm glad our allies are standing firm. I hope that doesn't change and they start to come around and try to help, because no, this is not their war. Trump did not consult with them, and Trump treats them like shit. Trump is out here just being like, why? People need to stop like giving in to everything he's doing. He's been so unhinged, and we've all been having to sit here and pretend that any of this behavior is fitting of a manager of a Baskin Robbins, let alone the president. You're not, no offense to Baskin. It's a great ice cream place. You run it, people run it well there. I'm saying he's not fit to run anything, and he's the president of the United States treating people like garbage. And then you think they're going to come and put their people at risk for you in the Strait of Hormuz now?
Right.
And because your dumbass could not. Sorry, excuse my language, folks. Like I don't know if I get fired for not be allowed back on TV after that, but whatever. This is a dumbass move,
It is.
and if you can't, you're telling me you expect them to help you now? You
Especially
expect
now.
them to help you?
Right. And if we recall, the only country to invoke Article 5 was the United States of America, and our allies showed up and they bled and died alongside our service members for years. And he directly insulted them. Directly insulted them when he was going on about this Greenland thing. And I really
Oh
think
yeah.
there's this big bugaboo about with Trump about wanting to expand the map. I think that he really believes
Yes.
that to be a world historical president, he has to expand the map. I mean, he threw out something ridiculous on Truth last night saying Venezuela, 51st state, maybe. Like that's just showing the degree of like how reactive he is to the consequences of his decision making. And talking about again, a war that was going to happen. From spring of 2002, we started moving assets, pre-positioning assets in the region to prepare for war in Iraq. And that's why when those debates were raging, I mean, it's like you don't move this amount of equipment and pre-position this amount of troops unless you plan to use them.
Yeah.
That happened at lightning speed with Iraq. One of the biggest. It may be the biggest single um, aircraft movement, I believe, since World War II. In the weeks prior to this strike. In the weeks
Exactly.
prior. That's
Exactly.
how hazard this whole thing has been put together.
And they knew it was going to come. And I'm really, what I've been really watching is Fox News. I just wrote an article, published an article on it. If you guys haven't seen it, go to my website, check it out. Hold on, give me 1 second. My dog's over here tweaking. I need to go do something real quick with him. Hold the con for me. Give me one moment. All right.
All right.
He's got a wound, a stitches he's been licking. I need to take care of that. Give me one moment.
Sure. Yeah, and I will just say to the folks out there watching, I saw a comment about what's the off ramp. And that's a really good question. It's a really disturbing question because I just saw a report this morning that Ahmed, we're discussing, there was a question in the comment about what is a potential off ramp here. And
Yes.
one problem is that if we keep killing the people that could credibly negotiate on behalf of the still standing regime, continue to be killed off, you are going to see a continual hardlining coalition of IRGC elements and the surviving political elements that are completely unamenable to stopping this. Because
Exactly.
in Iran's mind, if the regime stands, they win. You know?
Exactly. Yeah. Literally, survival is what they consider victory. You know.
Yeah.
And,
Survivalism, and it's part of the revolutionary spirit that has guided the culture, the political culture in Iran since '79.
yep.
And we were seeing reports this morning that Larijani was assassinated. And if there was one credible person who I could say may be interested in seeking an off ramp with the United States, it would be him. He's a conservative, but moderate by Iranian standards. By all accounts, a pragmatist as well. Off the board. Again,
And
another potential partner off.
the U.S. and Israel keep taking out people down the ladder that would then make it more extreme. Like, again, if you're Iran, if you think of the context, like, you have Saddam, basically invading Iran, after the revolution, right? And then out of that, you get the IRGC, you get this really extremist, further extreme than some of the supreme leaders that we saw. Like now they're increasingly going to be in charge. And then you have a situation where you're just continuously showing them that there's no route. Like Why would you validate the idea that they must have a nuclear weapon? Like, if your Gaddafi gives up his nuclear program, he's out. He gets
Mhm.
literally killed in the streets by his people. Okay, what lesson Putin? We know what lesson Putin learned from that. What lesson is Iran? Iran's going to look at Libya. Iran's going to look at how North Korea. Trump treated Kim with so much respect. His regime is just as oppressive, if not more. And
Yeah.
it's like, I mean, he gets respect. Why? Because he has nuclear weapons. He doesn't
And
get attacked or invaded, right?
and
And
Ukraine that handed over their nuclear weapons.
yes, I was right about to say. I was right about to say. Yeah, Ukraine gave up their nuclear weapons. They get absolutely murked here by Putin. They get invaded by Putin. And then and then you look at Iraq. You look at all these other every country that does not have that when the U.S. wants something and they don't have nuclear weapons to defend themselves, they get cooked. And then Obama, the brilliance of the JCPOA is taking so long to get that done. Finally, literally carving out a separate means through which that they are held together. Literally, no other non-proliferation agreement was even like this, and they literally allowed themselves to be completely supervised, and all of the monitoring that was going on. It was a remarkable deal that was done, and then Trump comes in after his own administration. People forget. I
Started something.
swear, one of our videos went viral on Facebook, Adam. Unfortunately, I hate to tell you, and we had so many people on coming up on Facebook, including some of my old friends' parents, which was really interesting to see, saying, "Oh, Iran wants to complain with the JCPOA." It's like, what is your source?
Yeah.
Trump's ass that you're kissing? Like, what is your source? There's zero source because Trump's administration in 2018, his own administration said his State Department, not me, not Obama's,
Yes.
his said
Not partisans,
not,
not
not,
part.
not partisans, not Biden's later. His administration said they were complying. The UN atomic watchdog said they were complying. Every single objective person said they were complying. And then Trump rips it up and says they weren't complying because he felt like it, because he just wanted to destroy it. And then that led to where we're at now. And it's just so frustrating that people believe nonsense that comes out of this guy's mouth. It straight up destabilized the region, tore up an incredible deal because of his feelings and his vibes and his unhinged anger and rage at Obama and jealousy, tears up this deal. And then if you're Iran, why? Why on earth, frankly, would you do another deal with the Trump administration?
Why would any country
Why?
do
Like, what are you like? There's zero incentive. They could
that? Right.
tear it up next week. You get a
Right.
ceasefire, they'll tear it up next week. Trump has
And
no idea the lack of what he's done to undercut the U.S.'s credibility.
absolutely. And this is something that is going to far outlast the Trump administration when it mercifully ends at some point. Um, because if we have now proven a pattern, we have established a pattern that the words of a Republican president mean nothing. They mean nothing. And frankly, the words of a Democratic president now mean nothing because a Republican can come in and say, nope, the old guy was illegitimate. That deal is gone. There was no point in negotiating. And so the United States, not to mention the fact that we've lost an inordinate amount of soft power with the shuttering of U.S. aid, we are now
Yes.
entering the remainder of this century with our hands tied behind our backs because we have burned the credibility of the United States over the last 20 years. We entered this century, which very well could have been a second American century. We entered this century at the height of our power. And now, within 26 short
Oh
years, we
God.
are at our nadir.
God, you're so right. It's just when you think about what we came in here with Slick Willie. Slick Willie is president in the 90s. I was a kid. I was born in 93. But my memories in the 90s, from people who I know who were sentient during that time, also said it was fantastic. We go into the 21st century technology, and again, I was talking about this in my other live. Like, it's just the amount of what we could be doing right now. technologically, scientifically, the breakthroughs, the amount of harmony we could be creating, the way if we had AI regulations, we could actually get them to be used specifically for automating away, not like just white collar like data set jobs, but like actually focusing on, how we can sequence these genomes, how we can solve these problems, get government funding specifically, push it that way instead of it just becoming an enterprise tech tool, and actually like really, we're closer than ever to a Star Trek future, but instead, Trump has us sitting here flattening our debate, talking about whether or not we should be murdering each other in the Middle East, whether or not we should be murdering civilians who are trying to protect their neighbors from ICE, whether or not brown people should be here. And it's just so frustrating, the work, especially that Obama had to do to like undo what Bush did
Yeah.
globally. And he worked so hard, and we were it looked like we were okay, maybe we were spinning this around, maybe it will be the American century, Hillary Clinton will be president, and we're going to have continuity of the 20th century where we have mutual coalitions where we're focusing on technology and we're actually smart. And then we just have this belligerent lunatic come in, lying to the American people, appealing to their worst inner dark impulses, and then he just drags us into that was maybe an anomaly, but you're right. People saw a pattern. We elected him again.
Yep.
And I have to say we because we all have to own up to it.
We do. Yeah.
And it's like we all have to like, especially his voters, particularly. You know, you're gonna have to, we grew up in Virginia, man. For those who don't know, I've known Adam's brother was the best man at my wedding. I've known also Adam since I was being Adam and friends since I was like, he knew me when I was in elementary school, right? So it's like we go in Virginia around some people, who we're Trump supporters, and you live around some people who are reforming Republicans, hopefully. But it's one of these things where we have to reckon with the true destruction that this administration has wrought.
Yeah, and that's the thing that is going to outlast, and that's why, I'm glad we refocused this discussion a bit on just hubris, because reality right now is biting back after a lifetime of consequence-free decisions from this man, Donald J. Trump. He has now launched something that is completely out of control. He can wish cast that this is almost done, or we need help now, that allies need to protect their own economic interests. They're not like the Trump show, the typical way of him exerting and leaning on folks does not work in war, especially when you have a country like Iran that truly, he loves the analogy of having cards, right? Iran has cards. Iran has cards. And they ignored the very good card counting that the layers of our government does to prepare presidents for monumental decisions for this.
No, exactly. And Iran was not ready. I mean, sorry, Trump was not ready for Iran. And Iran was ready for this, and they knew what they were going to do with the Strait of Hormuz. Everyone could have saw it coming. And now, because of his hubris, because of his emotional instability and immaturity, we are now in this place. And if we want to talk about where we could go from here, we talk about the potential. We don't know what the end game is because Trump has no plan. What we do know is that from what I could see, it looks like it's just going to end up being a war of attrition. It just seems like Iran believes they can just wait out the political, like they think the politics are catching up to Trump already. They think Trump's going to have to back down eventually, and they think they can just keep taking out, and they keep attacking our allies in the region because they think they could take out a lot of their interceptors. They're maybe holding back some of their even stronger missile capability to potentially break through later. Like they're desperate. They got nothing to lose. Their people hate them. Their people hate them. Their supreme leader's been killed. They're desperate. Israel's already taken, and now Israel's about doing what, a semi-ground invasion in Lebanon and displacing a million
Lebanon,
people. It's
and
like
saying the people in Lebanon will not have a right to return to their homeland. So this seems like it may be somewhat of a permanent.
He's about to Gaza Lebanon potentially.
That's what I saw reported this morning. Yeah. And to be clear, this is an Israeli-led operation, but we're co-signing.
It was
We are
made possible because of what we did in Iran. And even if Trump pulls back now, Netanyahu is such a destructive force, man. Like, I gotta you know, and it's again, like, I know people are afraid of being accused of anti-Semitism, but one of the things I always say, like, when you think you hate Netanyahu, you're not hating to your highest capacity until you talk to a progressive Jewish person.
Oh yeah.
I'm married into a Jewish family, bro. They hate Netanyahu more than anyone I've ever encountered. Okay, like they were informing me about how bad Netanyahu was when I first. So what I'm saying is, Bibi is not, and also Bibi is not Israel. Like I've
No.
just had he is what he's doing is undermining Israel. It's horrific how much he's undermined Israel's potential and made and is now trying to live out. Like it's like he's trying to work to make people believe anti-Semitic tropes. Straight up, the stuff he's doing, it's terrible. Because I think at this moment, like obviously, I despise Hamas for what they did on October 7th, but how Netanyahu responded to that, and then now the way his incursions in Iran and what he did to the Palestinian people, it's now he is now one of the largest perpetrators of anti-Semitism. He's one of the largest proliferators of it through his actions. And it's like, I just wish we could get better leadership there, because he was on his way out. Like, I always got to bring it up. Like before Hamas gave him a political gift with October 7th, he was plagued by the
Yeah.
the judicial protests. He was facing a lot of internal revolts, and he was almost going to be out. And then he goes ahead and feels, and that's the thing, he feels he has to be at war nonstop, or then eyes will come back to him. They'll start to say, Netanyahu, remember all your security failures that led up to October 7th? Netanyahu, remember your attacks on the judiciary that we almost removed you for before? Remember your corruption charges? Then, like,
Remember, remember funding Hamas as an opposition to the Palestinian Authority?
all
You
eyes
know,
will go back to him if he stops going to war. And that's what all of this is about. And then he's now convinced Trump to go along with it. It's not just like, I'm not one of those people that's on that, like, you know, Israel lobby, it's APAC, or it was pretty much Netanyahu manipulating Trump specifically. I don't think it was a lot of like lobbying really. It was more or less just Netanyahu personally.
I think it's 1-to-1. And going back to your statement about just the visceral hatred of Netanyahu from maybe not a lot of people know this, but George H.W. Bush's Secretary of State, James Baker, banned Netanyahu from the State Department, banned him because he was undermining U.S. foreign policy. So this is a
Yeah.
long-standing. This is his mo. And we all remember him holding up that image of a bomb at the UN General Assembly, saying, "Hey, we're right here." Well, we've been right there, in my memory, as long as I've been politically active. So he found the president that would finally allow him to launch the war that he always wanted to launch. And from the Israeli perspective, I get it. Its arch nemesis is Iran. You know what I mean? But the problem is, you're never going to get a chance to do this again. You will never get a chance to do this again. And this is what the failure of coalition building has wrought. And so the end game here, you look, if Adelsi rises up and says, "Hey, I'm ready to make a democratic Iran. I got the support of the people," I'm wish casting at this point. Fine, that's a different situation. But the future that I see that we're heading towards is a regime that is right now consolidating, and that it was reported by the Washington Post this week. And you have a return to the Israeli mowing the grass policy, where we are going to have to continue, like, you degrade, they build back up, and you go back in. So even Netanyahu cannot be thrilled with the way that this is happening, because the mechanism to facilitate actual regime change, actual state building, never
No,
considered.
Netanyahu is just delusional. He just wants to wipe them out entirely, and it's 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 not going to work, and it's not going to be sustainable. And now, like you said, you're just going to get a more extremist regime that follows. Like Saddam after the Gulf War. He's still in power, but still just the country's destabilized, and then it just leads to eventually you got to take them out again later. And it's like now you got Supreme Leader's son in charge, whole family killed. Also can't end the live without talking about the children that the U.S. strike killed. And it's like right out the gate, they did that. 165 children, over 175 people total. Inexcusable, atrocious, disgusting.
Yep.
We talk a lot about what happened with Gaza, but this was an actual U.S. direct strike. Did it? It just adds to the death toll of the region, and it's disgusting and atrocious. And again, like now, as a result of all of this, we are now going to be in a position where we have ISIS 2.0, a stronger renewed, with a more recent grievance than
And
Iran. Sorry, go ahead.
well, what I was going to say is then you have ISIS, which is a Shia organization, but your point, or a Sunni organization, but your point still stands. Your point still stands. We are strafing Iranian Shia militias in Iraq
Exactly.
today. You know what I mean? Like this is happening now. So the regional war that everybody feared, it's active. We had service members die in an accident in Iraq already. So the idea that this was just going to be a smash and grab and he would find his Delcy and there would be no consequences or fallout, it is just the height of arrogance. And if we think back to a lot of the arguments about starting the Iraq War in 2003 is that this would destabilize the region for a generation. We're within that window. We are still within that window. We have
Yes.
still not recovered from that. And what we've done now is just basically just poured gasoline back onto it.
It's just absurd. And I'm glad you made the Sunni Shia difference. It was more just like talking about the terrorist groups. Basically, we're going to see, like all of Iranian proxies are going to be even more empowered. And then, what really pisses me off is like Syria was just now going to start to get its footing. Like we're just in a place where certain countries that have been totally destroyed are just now like starting to try to get some kind of footing. And although I disagree with a lot of what the Trump administration does, some of the stuff they do with the Arab nations, like, the fact that he's not at, his anti-Muslim hatred doesn't extend when you have money, I guess. So
Oh
like, and
no.
at least he's treated some of the Arab nations, although there's a lot of bribes and stuff going on. But my point is like, we just needed to track towards peace. And again, like this is the core thing that everyone promised we wouldn't get with Trump, was that, of everything else, at least he's not murderous, or at least he's not getting us into foreign entanglements, like, Hitler looked outward, Hitler tried to conquer, but, Trump's just focused on making our lives internally a living hell. But no, actually, no, Trump is, he feels his domestic strength weakening. So he goes to where he has power, and that is foreign policy, and he's exerting that strength. Stephen Miller has been in his head about how he needs to conquer the Western Hemisphere, and then now you've got the neocons, the administration, you know, making the case, and the Fox News cabinet
Oh no.
really, really pushed Trump, especially the day of the strike. They knew it was coming. I knew that they know it was coming. I know Hannity and Kilmeade and Mark Levin were on Fox News that day telling Trump to strike. Knew it wasn't that they did not know it was going to come. There's no you can't convince me. What they were doing was making the case to his base
Mhm.
that this strike's going to come and it's a good idea. And then now we're here and no one thinks it's a good idea. We just saw Joe Kent, although I don't, he's got his own, stuff going on where he's, apparently he's had some ties to white nationalists or something. I don't know. There's some stuff going on with him on the Israel part of it that, I don't know. I don't know what he's thinking there. But he resigned because he said out of principle, this is the national director of the national counter, terrorism,
Yeah.
basically. And he said he resigned out of principle, because he said that this war, there was no imminent threat. Like that's massive. And meanwhile, Tulsi Gabbard, who was a staunch anti-Iran war person, it's just like no principles up there egging this on.
None whatsoever. And I've seen some folks in MAGA, especially, try to say like, well, this is an imminent threat and whatnot. So it's different. It's different. No, this is much, much worse. This is much worse than anything that he said that he would do. And if we recall, Trump, one of first Trump's his first actions upon taking office, his first term was a botched operation in Yemen that Obama had rejected.
Yep.
He has rejected, and I think that scared him off in his first term. But this time, again, he is unfettered. He has a Supreme Court decision that effectively, in his mind, places him above the law completely. Frankly, I have yet to see evidence of the contrary that it doesn't. And he's riding a metaphorical high that is, I think, for the first time again, he is confronting reality in a way that he's never had to face. And this is why you see this flop sweat and this panic about now trying to put together a coalition after the fact, which,
Yeah.
his entire history has reduced the credibility of even nodding in the direction of joining this, because
Yeah.
it's betrayal after betrayal, it's lack of foresight, and it's dragging. I mean, our Sunni Arab allies in the region, our Gulf allies, some even Shia majority allies, are
Yeah.
furious.
They're
If there was
pissed.
one piece of homework that you needed to do before launching this war against Iran, who the Sunni Arab nations are no fan of, it was getting them on board, and they failed. They insulted it, and they won't forget it.
Well said, man. We'll also see people in the chat. I see you, Jay, saying remember to subscribe to both Ahmed and Adam. Um, yes, and hit the like button as well because it boosts this video, but then also it'll boost the posts I do afterwards. Jay, thank you. You're also a paid subscriber, which I really appreciate. Lori Vance, you as well. I see you in here. Leslie, you as well. Everybody, like, thank you so much for being here. It's been a lot. We've been doing more of these lives. We wanted you to really be informed. We're gonna wrap up the live here in a second, but before you guys go, hit the subscribe button to both me and Adam. And if you haven't already, become a paid subscriber to my independent journalism. We are out here doing real work. We're trying to have these real conversations. We hope you learned a lot during this conversation. If you join later, we really covered all ground from the beginning to the end here. I'm going to post a write up later this afternoon on this, so hope you tune in there. But before we end, Adam, do you have any final thoughts? And if anyone, you have any final questions, throw them in as we wrap up here.
Yeah, I think my final thought is more philosophical than tactical or anything like this. And I read Ta-Nehisi Coates was interviewed recently, and by Ezra Klein, and so this doesn't really directly tie into Iran. But he mentioned a quote that has really stuck with me, and Klein asked, "Why are we losing?" And Coates says, "I don't think we're losing. I don't think this feels fatalistic to me. I'm an individual I'm part of something larger than myself. I have my ancestors, the work that a lot of them, they died not to see a brighter future, you know? And now here we are in 2026, the Iraq war, 9/11, it shaped the course of my life in ways that it shaped my life.
Same.
And it really, yeah, I know, both of us.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, your name's
it,
Ahmed Baba and Adam Ali. Let me tell you, they don't let you forget it in school. Go ahead.
yeah. But and I want to quote Coates directly here. It's like, after I leave the struggle where I leave it, and hopefully it's in a better place. Oftentimes it's not. That's the history in fact. Then my progeny, they pick it up and they keep it going. So now this is the second war of choice in the Middle East that I've consciously followed from the start. Some of my earliest memories are of the Gulf War. And this is a pattern that doesn't seem like it's going to break, perhaps in my lifetime. So I think we really, as a society, we must start thinking more broadly about how we leave our destiny in a better place, because we're not all going to get the job done, and we're not all going to be there to see it.
Really well said, man. I got to concur. Because we're really in a place where there has to be more forethought into the impacts on future generations, and also war generally. I'll tell you what, just like you know me, like I uh I don't know, man, I've evolved a lot. Like, I mean, not that I was ever pro war, but like I used to be more, in believing some more necessary strikes and stuff. Like the way I've turned a lot on Obama's drone program too. Like basically I'm pretty much anti-war entirely. I don't think any loss of life is necessary unless the war is against literally a once in a generation villain like Hitler, Like you need a Thanos level threat to get me to back a war. War is disgusting. The deaths of those girls in that school, I just can't stop thinking about it. I can't stop thinking about it and how anyone can move on from it or anyone can report on what's happening as if these individual lives don't matter just because they're brown girls in Iran. It's like I think our generation, younger generations, even older generations, there's anti-Vietnam boomers and everything. People, we need to be at a place where we just see this bloodshed as just senseless and stupid as fuck, frankly.
Especially when it's a war of choice. It's a
Yes.
war of choice. We would not
Hitler's
have
was not.
right.
Hitler, he was slaughtering millions of Jews and minorities. We had to take him down. That was a just war. This is not.
This is not a just war. And as terrible and as evil and as repressive as the Iranian regime was, the Obama administration proved diplomacy is an option. This administration never truly considered it.
No, they didn't.
And if I were to end, I'm sorry, on one last part, the alternative to war is soft power. It is things like USAID. And right now, the alternative, I mean, we're seeing stories now about threatening to withdraw AIDS funding from certain countries in Africa.
Using that as leverage. I saw that headline.
Yeah.
Using AIDS funding as leverage. What are we doing? Who are
This is
we?
how you end what historians I think will in the long term label as the Pax Americana between 1945 and 2003.
I keep about to end, and then you say some impactful ass shit that makes me want to say something else. I gotta say one more thing on that note is that like it just the case America has been making is that it is a superpower, but it's although yeah, of course it's had its horrible, mistakes and shortcomings and contradictions, of course. But the idea is that it's benevolent, that like its power, we have all this power, but our restraint is what makes us able to hold that mantle. But when you put that power in the hands of a psychopath, frankly, the way that this administration's behaving, they're behaving like psychopaths. You have to objectively say it. There's no logic here. People are dying. They're behaving like authoritarian psychopaths. Then you get into a place where people are gonna, like we saw with Mark Carney, where we see with the people around the world, we now are using AIDS funding as leverage. We're drawing AIDS funding as leverage. It's like you get to a place where you prove every American critic correct that there is no American exceptionalism, that we are this. And it's like now it's on our generation again to have to redefine this. And these are the arguments that needs to be had in 2028 because the next president is going to have we thought Obama had a tough job after Iraq. This next president is going to have to do God's work of redefining America to the world again at a crazy degree.
And I'm sure that president will be knocked for giving an apology tour, just as Barack Obama was at the start of his administration. But I will say, to your point about America and America being a project, I think you and I have discussed this a lot over the years. America's, strongest warriors, I think, about for the American project are the people that America has mistreated because America's promise is real. The promise is
Yes.
real. And to go back to quotes, we just have to hope that we leave it in a better place. Oftentimes we don't, but hopefully we've left the groundwork behind when it's all said and done for our successors to pick up the mantle and keep us on track. Because this American project, I still believe is one of the most brilliant forms of government.
I know.
And
I
we have
believe
to.
in it too. I believe in it too, man. And luckily, we're still young, so we still got to roll in it. We don't have to leave it behind yet. You know, we're in our 30s. We got time. You know, we're gonna get it to a place where we're gonna push it back because I do believe, yes, the idea of America, and like you said, the people who believe in it the most are the ones who oftentimes the country didn't believe in them. Like black people who went and fought in World War II, came back to a country, didn't guarantee their own freedom, or the black people who continuously to this day push us. Like, it wasn't until the 1960s where we literally had a founding era of black founding fathers and mothers that pushed us to and little LBJ, so underrated for his role there, to literally make us the multicultural democracy we are today, that now, of course, Chief Justice Roberts is targeting, but that's a whole different story. But it is on us now to push that forward. And all of you in the chat here that pay attention, that are hitting that like button, that that care about this country, you know, Sarah Hodgson, see you in there. You know, Adam, your wife. I miss you, Sarah. If you're watching, haven't seen you in a long time. You guys in the chat, Margot, Leslie, D, Roxanne, we appreciate you so much for being here. You guys are already doing the work because you care about the country. So, like, don't lose faith. Whatever Donald's doing, it's not you, it's not us. He's not who we are. Maybe the country had to see the ugly face of what it was hiding underneath its underbelly before we fully reject it in a few years from now. But it's not us. I'm telling you, this is
And
not
you don't
us.
know, and you don't have to be a revolutionary. You don't have to be out. Every little conversation matters. It moves it forward.
It really does. So, all right, thank you. We landed somewhere optimistic. I'm glad we kept going. It's on
Yeah.
us, guys. It's on all of you. This year, another, just, you know, yeah. Someone said in November, Margot. Yes, Republicans are getting absolutely shellacked this year. So look forward to that. They're getting whooped. Americans are coming back. In Minnesota, we saw hope. We see hope everywhere we look. This is gonna be this is going to be an experience that we get through and we come out the other side of this stronger. I know it. So thank you guys for being here. Adam, thank you for taking time out of your day to be here for over an hour. Appreciate you. This is an amazing conversation. I'm going to post it in full. Everybody hit subscribe on your way out if you have not. Consider becoming a paid subscriber to independent journalism we do. We're really trying to make this world a better place. And I will post this in full so you can watch the recording later today. And Adam, thank you so much for being here, brother.
Thank you, brother. Thank you, Ahmed. Always happy to chat with you, and thank you to everybody that tuned in and commented as well.
And you will be back, Adam. We will have another conversation soon. All right.
You don't have to twist my arm.
All right, brother. Bye.
Take care.